From the courts of Europe to the kingdoms of Africa, from the empires of the Near East to those of Eastern Asia, and on to the Americas, the world at the end of the 15th century was a place of remarkable diversity, and also of extraordinary artistic and intellectual accomplishment. It was an age of daring exploration, both of our planet and of the worlds of science and art.
I'm Earl Powell, Director of the National Gallery of Art in Washington, and I'd like to invite you to join me on an exciting voyage of discovery.
Through extraordinary works of art like these, we will explore the world's great civilizations at one of the most fascinating periods in history, the Age of Exploration at the dawn of the modern era. The study of history or of art history is usually limited to a single tradition as it develops over time. By looking instead at the entire world at a single moment, we can make fascinating comparisons between different cultures. It's particularly appropriate to make this survey at the end of the 15th century, for the new links between continents that were about to be made changed the relationships among the world's cultures forever. Christopher Columbus's expedition from Spain to the West Indies in 1492 was only one in a series of daring voyages across the world's oceans during a period which has since become known as the Age of Exploration. Many of these navigators, like Columbus, left Europe in search of the fabled wealth of the Orient. Some reached instead what Europeans came to call the New World, the Americas. By 1521, Ferdinand Magellan's small fleet had circumnavigated the globe. On this disc, you'll be able to take an imaginary voyage to the many cultures that flourished during the Age of Exploration. To make this possible, we have assembled a great variety of images from that time. Some are of objects we generally consider to be works of art. But you will also see images of useful objects, even everyday ones. In the 15th century, these were often made with great artistry, especially if they were intended for wealthy and powerful people. You'll see how much these works can tell us about the cultures that created them and the people who used them. The images on this disc are grouped into three major sections. Europe and the Mediterranean world focuses on the Mediterranean basin, where the voyages of exploration began. Toward Cathay presents the major countries of Eastern Asia, following the sea route west that Columbus wanted to sail in 1492. The Americas examines some of the remarkable civilizations that thrived in North and South America in the 15th century. Each of these three great worlds had evolved in isolation from the others, leading to the development of very different cultures. For that reason, each section of the disc has its own special focus. In Europe, for example, you'll see scientific instruments and maps, as well as drawings on scientific themes by major artists that give a clear sense of people's lively interest in their world and the universe. China and Korea were much more highly developed technologically than Europe was. However, the major advances in science and technology had taken place so much earlier in Asia that by the 15th century, these were fields for specialists, not for artists and enthusiasts. In Europe, a painter would study plants and animals like a naturalist, with a scientist's precision. A Chinese artist might draw these same subjects, not to demonstrate his scientific knowledge, but instead to display his skill in art. The first Europeans who arrived in the Americas had little interest in the culture of the peoples they encountered. They regarded American religions as devil worship and often destroyed ceremonial objects that today would be treasured as works of art. Recent archaeological studies of these now lost cultures give us some understanding of the often complex background of these works of art. It is hard for us to imagine a world in which cultures were as different from one another as they were in the 15th century. That makes it all the more remarkable to find works of art of such consistent excellence in such widely separated lands. Albrecht Dürer, who lived in the Age of Exploration, was struck by this fact when in 1520 he visited a display of artifacts sent to Europe from Aztec Mexico. He wrote, "All the days of my life I have seen nothing that rejoiced my heart so much as these things. For I saw amongst them wonderful works of art, and I marveled at the subtle genius of people in foreign lands." I invite you now to begin your own voyage of exploration to a distant world that can be brought alive again through these wonderful works of art.